Welcome to the Monday, January 25th, regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. As has been the habit, once a month, we like to call upon the principal of one of our wonderful schools to give an update and a presentation on things that are going on in that school. So this evening, we have Mr. Scott Weinstein, who is the acting principal of Gladwin Elementary School, and I would gladly turn it over to Gladwin.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of myself and Gladwin Elementary School, I'd like to say Happy School Board Appreciation Month. We appreciate your service. And let me see. So I'm going to go over Gladwin. I'm going to highlight some of the things that are happening in our building this year. And we're going to start with the Gladwin Way. Now, the Gladwin Way is something that all of our students know, and I will model it for you. We respect ourselves, respect others, and we respect the environment. And that doesn't really look cool, me standing in front of the podium doing it. When 750 students are doing it at once, it's really awesome. And they all know what it means. So that's the Gladwin Way. And last time I stood in front of you, I was being approved as the acting principal of Gladwin Elementary. And when I got there, I wanted to know what made Gladwin special. And people told me in a big way. And as you can see on this slide, a lot of the teachers chimed in and told us what makes Gladwin special. I'll highlight Sally Drucker, one of our veteran teachers, said, "We support each other to do what's best for children." And that's what I've learned along the way at Gladwin. This mural is new at Gladwin. It's in the center lobby area, and it's a beautiful depiction of what people believe Gladwin is all about. Our art teacher made it, Amanda Fazzini, and it was designed with some of our students, and it has the Gladwin wolf, which represents our logo and the Gladwin Way, and you'll see hands there and being a community and coming together, and then children learning and playing, all the things we want our schools to be all about. And that's kind of the centerpiece of our lobby and a beautiful display about what Gladwin's about. And then, of course, when we think of schools, we think of the learning that happens. And the thing that's important to do as adults is to model learning. I think that's one of the most important things we can do for children. I just included this slide about our teachers and their commitment to learning. These are all of our K-2 teachers learning new assessments for young children, how to teach them to read better and their guided reading. And every one of our teachers, our K-2 teachers at 7:30 a.m. monthly comes and meets together, led by our reading specialist. I thought it was a cool group to represent the adult learning that happens at school. One of the first activities that I was invited to was a summer reading trivia. All of our fifth graders got together and they do a really cool trivia. And our judges there are all the fifth grade teachers that look like the American Idol judges, and they were doing a cool trivia thing over the student summer reading. Hour of Code we participated in. Here's some pictures to represent that. This a few weeks ago, one of our classes was reading about a project to bring water to Africa and the difference that a first grade child made in raising money, a child named Ryan. And his work has since taken off where a lot of people are getting water in Africa. So the children were really inspired by that. The teacher knew somebody that works for Wells for Relief International and came in and spoke about the process. And it's one of those authentic learning, experiential learning things where students are engaged in trying to make a difference while learning how to read and write better. And so the gentleman on the right came in, and the girl that you see in the picture is holding a 5-gallon bucket that's about 50 pounds, and they were modeling how children their age carry that for really long distances so people get water, and it was really eye-opening to our children. Here's our kindergartners learning about fire safety. Our RARE program, this year we partnered with the Becton Scholars and the Power Program, children that are part of the Junior Lmsb, and they come bi-weekly to Gladwin and work as kind of mentors and helping us learn about science with our children, a really cool activity that brings the schools together. One of the projects for our second grade, the Ellis Island Project, another experiential learning where our families came out in droves and volunteered to give the children a learning experience of how people came to our country. Everybody came from somewhere and not always voluntarily, and they learned a whole lot about that. I've been really intrigued and excited about how much culture enters our classroom. In the top left, you'll see Keith Jones, one of our recently retired teachers at Gladwin. has been traveling the world since he retired. Good for Keith. And he's been to Africa and shared some artifacts. The bottom right, you see our kindergartners. They go outside, and every time they'll take an airplane and enter the room. And one of the children's family members, usually a parent, will represent their culture and tell about the different cultures that are represented in the classroom. So a lot of really cool opportunities bringing culture into the classroom. And the non-cognitive skills. So we not only talk about, the slide's messed up a little bit, what we're learning, but how to be a learner. And a lot of our teachers spend a lot of time talking about how children learn, how to learn with others, and how to be a great teammate, things that are happening in our classrooms. The arts are alive and well at Gladwin. Here is our third grade musical called Mighty Minds, which I thought was outstanding. Our fourth and fifth grade choir did a really nice job under the direction of Miss Becky Jones, our music teacher. And service. I was meeting recently with one of our HSA presidents, and I've been amazed at how much service happens through our schools, and certainly Gladwin as well. I'm going to highlight some of them. There's so many of them, but one of the things that we talked about, which I thought was really interesting, was when you come to elementary school, when you're going to come through Gladwin, you're going to learn how to read, you're going to learn how to write, you're going to learn how to do math, and you're going to learn how to help others. Almost as just a given that that's what you're going to learn how to do. And the spirit of service in our community is outstanding, and I've been really impressed and amazed at our parent volunteers that help our children learn these things beyond the classroom walls. To highlight some of them, Tess Mahoney, she's been on the district website. That's where the shot's coming from. I went to the Bellevue when she was honored. Right after Perlman gave $50 million to CHOP, and our Gladwin student was right before her for her service. One of the community service projects that happened in the classroom, she took it beyond the classroom assignment, and stayed with the Inglis House, and was recognized by them in a really nice representation of our school district, our school, and her family. Here's us walking for JDRF. Thanksgiving food drive. Beards for Ben, one of our former Gladwin students and Welsh Valley and Harriton students. Ben Levitt has Burkitt's lymphoma, and the community got together, and I sported my first beard. I figured I was one of the few members on staff that can actually grow one, so I made an attempt at it. It wasn't great, but you can kind of see me in the back there, and a lot of other people did whatever they can to express their support for Ben and creative beards. And most recently, our day of service, we had 39 students go and support Gladwin Elementary, and two tables and learning activities that were set up at Lower Merion High School for that. And last, student voice, and I represented this a few ways. One of the really cool events that happens is in elementary schools, you start the day frequently with a morning meeting where every student is recognized, and it's kind of a community building thing that happens in the classroom. And periodically, we'll do an entire school morning meeting where all of Gladwin will come to the gymnasium. And this is one right before the break. You see in the picture Jen Kehoe, our newly appointed assistant principal. It was her second day there, so she got to meet the student body. But I introduced her, she spoke, and the rest of the time was turned over to students. They run the whole school morning meeting and do an outstanding job. And a lot of that leadership comes from a group called our Wolf Ambassadors. And there are 93 fifth grade Wolf Ambassadors. And it's our leadership/service organization in our building that a couple of our teachers do an amazing job leading them in different projects. And one of the outgrowths of that is a story that I wanted to tell you about it. The fifth grade seating. Mr. Copeland came by and met with these young ladies, which I thought was great. 6 of them came together, and in thinking of the strategic plan and how we're going to operationalize the student plan, strategic plan, we're thinking about student voice and student-centered schools. And I thought this is a really good representation of that. 6 young ladies came together. Now our 5th grade sits together. They have to sit with their homerooms during lunch. And they'd probably rather sit where they'd like to sit, near their friends. So usually, traditionally, each year they asked to do it in different ways, but this year they made a really outstanding coordinated effort. They came, they made an appointment with our secretary to get time for me. They brought this petition that you see in the middle, and they met with me and had thought about all the reasons why we wouldn't do this free seating and had a counterpoint for all of them. And I stalled them for a little bit, and I said, I really love you using your voice. The process of student voice is important. You might not always get what you want, but you're doing it the right way. And they came back with even more signatures. They got everybody's signature in the 5th grade, but about 11 students, and that's a whole lot of 5th graders. And they scheduled another time to meet with me and had another presentation. I said, if you really want this, you'll meet and you'll present this to your 5th grade classmates. And on the right, you see them in the auditorium. They presented to the entire 5th grade, and they came up with a plan, and we used the Gladwin Way as the criteria to respect yourself, respect others, and respect the environment and what that would look like in the cafeteria. And we said, it's not just something you're going to be entitled. They wanted free seating Fridays. I said, that's almost an entitlement that you get that. I like the feeling of that you earn it. So on the right, you see a thermometer that'll be there that's in all of our 5th grade classrooms. And if they meet the criteria each day, they get a certain amount of points. And then they're on their way to earning free seating. And this was all driven by them and their ideas and their presentation to the students. So I was really proud of them. And I thought it was a really good segment of student voice that I wanted to share with you. And on behalf of Gladwin, thanks for coming out and let me represent the school. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm not clear now. Do they get it or don't they get it? It's just,
They get it if they earn it.
all right.
So there's criteria every day that they have to do, and if
Yeah,
they
it's
earn it each day, they'll get a certain amount of points. When they hit 400,
Oh, you got to hit 400.
they're going to sit where they like to sit,
All right.
which is also a nice transition to middle school when they'll do that for the first time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Great presentation. Any questions or anything for Scott? We will move now to audience recognition for agenda items only. If you could sign in with Mr. Orlando, there is a 3-minute time period for public comment. Mr. Orlando is up front. If you could also state your name and where you live in the township. You're welcome to start.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arthur Walk. I live in Gladwin. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is supposed to be a public meeting, a public opportunity to discuss some of the agenda items, one of which is very important, which is the proposed school tax increase. I want you to withdraw the request for a school tax increase. You don't need the money. Historically, you haven't needed the money for your tax increases for the last 6 years. You have $55 million in the bank. You have more than enough money to cope with any projected deficit. And I should remind you that for the last 7 years, your projected deficits were $58 million. And for the last 7 years, you didn't have a deficit. You had a surplus of $50 million. So may I suggest that your business manager take a continuing education course in arithmetic, because you have not once, provided truthful information to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in order to exceed the budgetary cap. You have not once had a deficit in all of those years, and you have a gigantic surplus that can be used to give some tax relief to the residents of Lower Merion. It is my belief that these surpluses are designed to be in the budget. And they're designed to be there so that you can accumulate large amounts of money, and you continue to do so to fund some pet projects. Now, I'm an education person. I like education. I don't mind funding education. I'm happy to do my part. But right now, my school taxes are $30,000 a year. I have never had a student in the Lower Merion school system. But I will tell you that those people who have students there are annoyed at your unwillingness to even discuss budgeting. Budgeting in any family is that when things get tight, You have to give up certain things in order to make your family move along. There is no such thing as budgeting in the Lower Merion School District. You don't give up anything. When you had a slight increase in school students, what you did was you hired as many teachers as a percentage of the increase in students as there were in students. Instead of using it as an opportunity to save money, to reduce the cost, to reduce your deficit, you did nothing. Now, I can just look at you and you're all saying, we're going to let this guy talk because he's not going to do anything, just like nobody else did anything in the past. Allow me to assure you that I, as an attorney, will do something. There will not be business as usual in the Lower Merion School District. You will engage in budgeting, and you will withdraw this outrageous, unwarranted, and unjustified tax increase. Because I am going to institute a lawsuit, many lawsuits if necessary, to make certain that your misrepresentations to the public as well as to state authorities are brought to the attention of the courts. This is going to end. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Stephen Gleason, and I live in Rosemont. As elected officials, you've been entrusted by the community with the fiduciary responsibility of ensuring that our resources are wisely spent. You have an obligation to take this responsibility seriously and to spend each and every dollar of taxpayers' money as if it were your own. You also have the obligation to prepare and approve a budget through an open, transparent, and collaborative process. You have failed the community in so many ways, including holding a meeting as important as this on a snow day to make sure that most members of the community cannot attend, refusing to post the preliminary 2016-17 budget on the district's website, as every neighboring school district has been doing for years, failing to answer questions from members of the community in an open and televised forum at these meetings, failing to benchmark the academic and fiscal performance of the Lower Merion School District against other comparable school districts in the area. As a result of these failings, you are proposing a budget for 2016-17 that contains the following dubious distinctions: a 5.14% annual increase in expenditures compared to the PA Act 1 maximum of 2.4%, and an average increase by our neighboring districts of 3.6%. Teacher and staff benefits that average 65% of salary, compared to the 30 to 35% in the real worlds of business, not-for-profits, and well-run government organizations. Expenditures per pupil of $31,032 for next year, which is 17 to 63% more than any other comparable school district in the area, and more than many private schools. So I have a few questions. Ms. Gilbert, what benefit do our community or our students derive from spending $4,400 and 17% more per student per year than the Radnor School District?
I suggest you finish your 3 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Fetterman, what benefits do our community or our students derive from spending $7,500 and 31.9% more per student per year than the Upper Merion School District? Ms. Van Lynch, what benefits do our community or our students derive from spending $11,117 and 55.8% more per student per year than the Tredyffrin Easttown School District, especially when TE has surpassed Lower Merion in nearly every statistical measure of excellence? These are not rhetorical questions. They are questions that the community has been asking for years, to nothing but silence from the school directors. I will submit these questions again tonight in writing to the board secretary after this meeting, and expect to see them answered on the district website prior to the next meeting that is held to discuss this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could make sure Mr. Orlando has your questions, we'll be glad to look at those. Typically in our business meetings, we don't answer questions while speakers are at the podium. Is there any, did you have anything else? Are there any other speakers, Mr. Orlando? Okay. Mr. Copeland? No, my turn, sorry. Board of School Directors approves the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings: December 21st, regular business board meeting; January 11th, Education Committee and supplementary regular board meeting; and accept the following committee meeting minutes: Curriculum Committee, January 4th, January 8th, Policy Committee, January 13th, Communications Committee, January 15th, Finance Committee, January 21st, Facilities and Purchasing. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Copeland?
Thank you. Just a few highlights. Obviously, we've had a historic snowfall recently, and parents probably know by now we're asking for a 2-hour delay tomorrow. I know that kids are disappointed all over. Well, maybe maybe they will be. It'll give us the opportunity to clean up some more, and hopefully we get some sun in the morning and get some more melting. Also want to make the public aware that this is School Board Recognition Month. The members of the Lower Merion School Board as directors take their responsibilities seriously. This is a time during the year where all school boards are recognized for their selfless service to the community. And we tried to do something a little bit different this year and involve the students. So some of you see at your seats, you have some thank you notes that were written by children from the schools. I think it is a nice way for you to see the kinds of things that the kids do, but also for them to have little lessons about what you do. Not often is what you do necessarily transparent to the public, the meetings you attend, the briefing books that you read, but those people who know what you do appreciate it and thank you for your service. So on behalf of the administration, the school district, and its environs, congratulations on this celebration for you tonight.
Thank you.
I'm still on. So, Superintendent, under number 7, we only have one item to approve under A. The Superintendent and Administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached human resources actions HR 1 through HR 5.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We will now have the report of the Curriculum Committee by Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you very much. The Curriculum Committee of the Board met on January 4th. The main presentation topic was an overview of the 2014-15 PVAS, and the purpose of the presentation was to explain PVAS as a method or a tool to analyze growth across time rather than achievement. It compares students' performance to their own prior performance, and it was a wide-ranging discussion. Now, there was actually a full board presentation on January 9th, so if people are interested, they can go and look at the presentation from January 9th, but I will give some summary here. Lower Merion School District students are still demonstrating high levels of academic achievement. There was a discussion about how the PA core math for 2014-15 was significantly more rigorous than previous years, and the impact of that on PVAS. High school biology is indicating higher levels of achievement and growth. Lower Merion School District uses data to work with schools, teachers, and individual students for both course placement and enrichment and mediation. So it's not just used sort of overall, it's actually used to discuss what needs to go on with individual students. Based on the analysis of recent data, we are going to examine middle school science data and curriculum to decide if and how we want to better align curriculums to those standards. And just to remind everybody, that based on analysis of previous data, we had already made curricular adjustments in elementary writing, which have produced results, as well as the provision of after-school support, summer bridge, and a middle school algebra bridge program, which is going to start in February. In addition, we reviewed a contract for Centedge, is that how you say it? Centedge Learning Financial Algebra textbooks for $5,406. These are textbooks for financial algebra. There are currently 61 students taking the class in both of our high schools in total. The administration expects this level of demand to continue, and the committee members, bless you, voted unanimously to support this purchase and send to the purchasing committee for review, which I believe Mr. Driscoll will discuss.
We didn't get it this month, maybe next month.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, well, our next meeting is going to be on February 1st at 8:30 a.m. in this room.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert.
Following that, the administration has two actions recommended for the board, B and C. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached overnight trip applications from Harridan High School and Lower Merion High School. And further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the increase in registration and tuition for summer school programs. I would also like to note that at some date looking forward, these are the traditional summer school programs that the district has always run. We're going to be recommending the Jump Start program at some time in the future, which will require an additional approval when we get to that. But these are the traditional programs.
Any questions? Please.
What's FBLA?
FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America.
One question, Mr. Copeland. Do we offer tuition support for summer school for students in any capacity?
I believe we do for free and reduced lunch.
Free and reduced lunch students do not pay the tuition fee, they pay only the registration fee.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carry.
Finally, under Student Services, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the student services items as listed, agreements for students receiving non-district educational services, SS1 through SS5.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee, Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The Purchasing and Facilities Committee met this past Thursday, January 21st. As usual, we began our meeting by reviewing and approving the list of bills. We then moved on and reviewed approved contracts for renting facilities at St. Joseph's University for both LMHS and Harridan High School graduation ceremonies this spring. Lower Merion School District does not have an indoor facility large enough to accommodate the graduating students, Lmsb personnel, and invited guests. We've been renting space from St. Joseph's for graduation ceremonies for the past several years. The cost is an estimated fee of about $15,250 per ceremony. We then reviewed and approved a contract to purchase a first set of replacement server equipment from Dell. This equipment records images from various security cameras from many sites or operated around LMSD. Our existing server equipment is several years old and at the end of its projected useful life. If we experience a failure now, the issues of lost data would be added onto the cost and need for replacing the failed equipment at the time of failure. Replacing now reduces the risk of potential lost data. Again, these servers are at the end of their near useful life. The cost of replacement is $83,217.68. We then reviewed and approved a contract to purchase a second set of replacement servers from E+. Much like the previous what I just said, this existing equipment establishes virtual servers that run many of our data applications Lmsb uses every day. Again, this equipment is also several years old and nearing its end of projected useful life. Same issues with failure, loss of data, and trying to fix it would be very costly. So the replacement was previously described in the district's 5-year technology plan presented in August, and the cost replacement is $225,369.04. We then went on and reviewed and approved an individual work order with Gilbert Architects. The district has a master services agreement with Gilbert Architects to assist us in planning for future facility needs as our enrollment continues to grow to increase.
So fast, we can't hear. This is a public meeting, so the public's entitled to hear what he has to say.
If I may, it is on the agenda, so if you can
The
read.
agenda doesn't tell us what it is, and I don't want to have a dialogue, because you won't have a dialogue, but I want to hear what the gentleman has to say. I'm here as a member of the public. It's a public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Each business meeting, we have our reports mentioned, or our reports overviewed. We talk about this at length at the facilities meeting. So, Mr. Driscoll, please continue.
So I'll start beginning with this item. We then reviewed and approved an individual work order with Gilbert Architects. The district has a master services agreement with Gilbert Architects to assist us in planning for future facility needs as our enrollment continues to increase. Through prior work orders, Gilbert Architects has studied our 6 elementary schools in Welsh Valley. The work approved in this individual work order is to broaden their scope to include BC Middle School and the 2 high schools. By doing this analysis at these additional schools, we will have a better understanding of our facilities needs as 1, our enrollment continues to increase, and 2, as this increased enrollment progresses through the middle schools and then the high schools. The fee is not to exceed $115,000, excuse me. We then went on and reviewed and approved an amendment to an existing contract with Reynolds Construction. Much like the previous contract, the Reynolds Construction is to provide additional construction cost estimates for additional buildings in the district. Again, this is as enrollment continues to grow in the future. The fee for that contract is not to exceed $10,000. We then went on to review change orders for some of our existing or our ongoing construction projects. First one was for plywood box out at Ballackinwood Middle School for $6,783.50. During construction of renovations of the storage facility into usable space, the doors to this addition required box-ins for electrical circuits as well as proper finishes for door jambs. We then went on to look at a change order for adding trees at Welsh Valley Middle School for $9,080.19. The prior St. Justin's property was heavily overgrown along Haggisford Road at the time of Lmsb's acquisition. In addition, we removed trees along the slope between the new field and new sidewalk as we built a new field there. Lower Marion Township has a requirement that some land development projects add new trees when old trees are removed. This change order is to purchase and plant those new trees to replace those trees that were removed. We then moved on to information issues. We received an update from Reynolds Construction and Gilbert Architects on existing construction projects as well as future potential construction projects. We mainly discussed the removal of temporary modulars from Welsh Valley, the fields and their conditions at Penn Valley, Gladwin, and Welsh Valley Middle School, potential change orders pending as we approach finishing work at Welsh Valley, potential contract process and timing for work to be done in this building, the DAO, to add additional classrooms to map to our increasing enrollment, and temporary and permanent construction at Penn Wynne. I want to make note that the district is moving forward with additional temporary classrooms at Penn Wynne to meet enrollment needs in September 2016, based on prior decisions made in December. However, no decision has been made on permanent construction at Penn Wynne. We were merely discussing options at Penn Wynne of what permanent construction could look like. Our final issue that we discussed that day was preliminary plans regarding a potential kindergarten center at Welsh Valley and what that would look like, the size, and the potential costs to construct and operate. Again, these are just very preliminary discussions to provide a different angle on what the district might use to address its enrollment growth in the future. No decision was made to go forward with the kindergarten center. The next Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting will be in this room February 11th at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Mr. Orlando?
Under the Business Office and Finance section, we have 7 action items. I'm going to take them in one motion unless a board member would like me to separate any particular motion. Seeing that there are none. The administration recommends the school board directors approve the following action items: approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for December 2015, acknowledge receipt of the second quarter student activity reports, approve the resolution to proceed by authorizing proper officials of the district, the solicitor, designated bond counsel, and designated financial advisor to take certain actions relative to the refunding of the general obligations bond series of 2006 and 2007. Adopt a preliminary 2016-17 school district budget authorizing expenditures totaling $258,934,268 based upon a real estate tax of 27.3963 mils. Also enact a 1% real estate transfer tax and a $5 local services tax. Next motion is to authorize the filing of budget exceptions in accordance with Act 1 to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And the final one is to declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof.
Are there any questions? Please.
Mr. Copeland, could you just explain what the budget process is moving forward in terms of what's a preliminary budget and the
Sure, this
level of meetings?
is, my understanding is that there are, about 4 different votes a board has to take between now and its final budget adoption?
There are two. There's a preliminary budget, a proposed final budget, and then the final budget.
Okay, so there's 3. So this is the preliminary budget. The state of Pennsylvania requires this by the 27th, I believe. And so there will be more opportunities for both the board and the public to weigh in on discussions of the budget. This is not a final budget adoption.
Just a couple points of clarification. So the state has not completed their budget process at this point, correct? Yes. So, I mean, we really can't know those numbers until the state approves their budget. So at this point, this is a placeholder vote until we figure out in more detail what exactly the budget's going to look like. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
The final budget adoption must be June.
June 13th is the final board meeting.
So it's very early in the process.
Okay. So this does not commit us to anything other than a ceiling.
That's my understanding, yes.
The other question I had about the budget is, Vic, could you just talk about what the exceptions are and why we're applying for them?
There are 2 exceptions that we're applying for. One is special education exception. So if you have an increase in the last 2 years of actual special ed costs that exceeds the index, you can apply for an exception, which we do. The other one is PSERS. So if there's an increase in the PSERS rate, you can apply for exception. So for example, the PSER rate next year is going to increase over 16%. From the 25.84 to 30.03 projected, I think in 2025, I think it is, to be up over 34%. Again, that is mandated by the PSERS board. They're required to pay that particular expenditure. There's no negotiation. There's no way around it. So they're the 2 exceptions that we're applying for in order to be in compliance and fund those 2 expenditures.
So that PSERS increase alone is 16% of what we currently pay, or?
It's a 16% increase over what we're currently paying plus any additional salaries from last year.
Okay, and did you want to add something?
Only going to indicate, so that the PSERS obligation in dollars is, this is something that's been growing as an obligation that used to be taken on by the state and is now being offloaded onto local districts, correct?
Well, the Peters Board has increased the rate dramatically over the last few years, so more of the cost has been passed on to the local taxpayers.
I'm just wondering if you have, I know we've seen them before, the actual amount of money of PSERS previously to now to, do you have that available?
Yeah, I just jotted down some years. So if you go back to 2010, 11, our expenditures for retirement was 5.5 million. At the end of last completed fiscal year, it was over $24 million. So you can see in a span of 5 years or less, it's increased dramatically.
And that's that's not by our decision,
That
that's
is not by your
state
decision.
imposed.
So back in 10, 11, the rate was 5.64. In 14, 15 was 21.4. So it's increased in, several 100% fold.
Thank you.
With no opportunity to negotiate or make any changes?
Unless the legislature changes the law, this is what we have to go by.
Okay. My last question is about the general obligation bonds and the refinancing. We talked about that in the Finance Committee, but since my report's not coming till later, could you just discuss briefly the refinance of the general
Sure.
obligation bonds?
So, we work with Public Financial Management, who's our financial advisor, and we've been looking through different bonds that potentially could be refunded, and I think last year we had gone over some of the potential bonds that could be refunded, and we did, in 2015, refund partial of the 07 bonds. This is a continuation of refunding the remaining $26 million of 2007 bonds and also the 2006 bonds, which is a little over $32 million. So based upon those refunding right now, we believe the savings will be over $6 million by refunding those two bonds to the school district.
Okay, and, when I mentioned to a friend that one of the things we were doing in our meeting tonight was refinancing the bonds, the first thing he said was, why have you waited so long to refinance the bonds? So can you just explain what our
Yeah,
legal restrictions are regarding?
So there's certain
financing?
restrictions on the bonds. So for example, 2006, you can't refund the bond till the call date. The call date is not until May. You can advance or refund a bond once in its lifetime, which is what we did in 2007. So we did advance refunding prior to the callable date in September of 17. So that's, we did part of that. We thought at that time the market was okay, so we kind of put some of it away and make sure we got the savings. In the meantime, the market has, agreed with what we've done and kind of now has kind of stayed low. So we're continuing with the remaining bonds.
Any additional questions? Dr. O'Leary?
Yeah, just for people that are following along at home, the PSERS money, where does that show up in the line item of the budget? Is that under benefits?
Under benefits.
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Under Facilities and Operations, there are 6 action items. Mr. Driscoll in his report went over all those items in detail, so I'm going to take the 6 items in one motion unless a board member would like me to separate any particular motion. Seeing that there are none, the administration recommends that the school board of directors approve the following action items. Approve the agreement with St. Joseph's University for license agreements for the Harrington Lower Marion High School graduations in 2016 for an estimated fee of $15,250 for each school. Approve the Amendment 3 to the individual work order professional services for Gilbert Architects, an amount not to exceed $115,000. Approve the increase in continued and
Mr.
estimated.
Orlando, can I interrupt just for a moment? The agenda's not up
Oh, I'm sorry.
for the public to follow.
Okay. Let me, I'm using the other side of the table, so it's a little bit different.
I know, sorry.
Just filling in, but, okay. Sorry about that. So, we were at Reynolds, approve the increase for continuing estimating scheduling services for Reynolds Construction LLC, for amount not to exceed $10,000. Approve the quote from Dell for hardware and technical support in the amount of $83,217.68. Approve the quote from E-Plus for Dell XC 630 product in the amount of $225,369.04, and that agreement is pending solicitor's review. And then approve the change orders for the Volsh Valley Middle School additions and alterations project.
There any questions?
No, but I'd like to state, as I do every meeting, that there's no relation between me and Gilbert Architects.
And again, just a reminder that Mr. Driscoll covered all of these items in his report of the facilities meeting of last week. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carry. We will now have the report of the policy committee from Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The policy committee meeting was held on January 8th in this room, and we discussed administrative regulations, which from time to time, administrative regulations undergo changes without the need for a change in policy. So we looked at the administrative regulation for number 124, extracurricular and co-curricular activities. This AR is updated for consistency with the policy 124 passed in June of 2015 and the law as it relates to participation by students not enrolled in the district, i.e. homeschooled, private, or charter. This was reviewed in December, and the committee requested additional changes and a return to the committee for final review. The changes have been made and the AR will be put on the website. AR 206-4 was discussed, assignment of pupils within this district, superintendent authorization to assign students to maintain equality in class sizes. This is a new administrative regulation that follows the language in Policy 206, paragraph 2, number 4, that provides the discretion for the superintendent to maintain equality in class sizes. This regulation sets the stage for a discussion regarding the concept of partner schooling in the district. There was significant discussion of this AR, and it will be brought back next month with changes to the policy committee for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
There's two
Oh,
more
I'm
things.
sorry.
That's okay. There are two policies that are up for first reading. Policy AR 118, independent study. This policy administrative regulation was recently suspended in September of 2015 to examine ways to provide this opportunity in more fiscally responsible ways and to allow the buildings time to review the process and offer recommendations. In December, the administration shared its intent to revise and the nature of those revisions. The proposed revised policy and AR were reviewed. That are as a result of the discussions with teachers, principals, and others toward creating a meaningful experience for students together with criteria to be followed at the building level in connection with affording such an experience. The policy and AR provide the guidelines and procedures for obtaining an independent study course. They will be brought back for additional input next month after some necessary changes are made by administration. Policy AR 810 was discussed, student transportation. The recommended changes to this policy and administrative regulation relate to the adoption of surveillance cameras on school buses to record both video and sound. There will potentially be 4 cameras per bus. Details about the cameras and purchasing the technology will be further discussed at a future Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting. And that concludes the report. The next meeting of the Policy Committee will be on February 5th at 2016 at 8:30 a.m. in this room.
Now, thank you, Ms. Robinson. The following policies were reviewed for a first reading. Policy 118, independent study. Policy 206, assignment of pupils within the district. And Policy 810, student transportation. We will now have a report of the Finance Committee, Ms. Devonna Ventura.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on January 15th in this room. We met for about an hour and 45 minutes. The first item on our agenda was the bond refinancing, and Mr. Orlando just went over that. We then reviewed the enrollment impact on the budget and a financial analysis of possible scenarios, expenses, costing out if assuming the enrollment projections hold, what the impact will be on the budget moving forward. It was a rather lengthy discussion, and a lot of numbers were thrown out. I don't think that there's much benefit to trying to recreate the conversation, but it was, I think there were 6 of us in attendance at that meeting. We also looked at possible capital project expenses, again, due to the enrollment changes. The last thing that we looked at briefly was the state budget impact, and just some quick numbers, and Vic, flag me if I get these wrong. We receive approximately $32 million from the state. Most of that is for PSERS reimbursement, FICA reimbursement, and transportation's about 2.4 million, special ed's about 2.8 million, general ed's about 3.4 million. The PSERS, we're required to pay the full amount for the PSERS, and then the state reimburses us half, which is what those numbers are about. So I think 15 million we've gotten so far. Does that sound right?
From the state?
Or is 15 million the total number?
No, so far this year, we've only received around $12 million total, and 6.5 of that was related to PSERS.
Okay. While the impact of the state not having, while there is an impact to Lower Merion for the state not having a budget passed, at this point, we are able to cover those costs, and don't need to borrow, as some districts may have to do, to cover those. So as of right now, we're okay. We're hoping that they approve a budget soon so that we can get the money we're due. The next meeting has not been scheduled yet. It'll likely be in mid-March. We hope to hold it in the evening.
Thank you. Ms. Ackman, report of the Communications Committee.
Thank you. The Communications and Community Engagement Committee met January 13th in the morning. We had some discussion about recent news and highlights, which included preparations for Martin Luther King Day of Service activities at Lower Merion High School, as well as some other events in the community. We discussed some recent successes from the Science Olympiad team, and some partnerships that have been established with Philadelphia, teams based at Philadelphia Public Schools, and how our schools had supported those teams, which was kind of great news to some of us. We then went into a discussion about the website, which will be updated and relaunched this year. In the process of getting proposals, I think a decision should be made soon in terms of help with that. But the purpose is to update both the look and the functionality with an emphasis on making it much more mobile friendly. So there will be at least one focus group to get input on what type of information parents and community members would like to easily find on their phone in terms of the website. Then we talked about the Community Resource Network and using a trigger for volunteer approvals in the school next year to solicit folks who may want to volunteer in the schools in different areas, to create a kind of a process and a form to do that, which we'll be moving forward with. We had a brief discussion about the alumni and development potential programs. There's now actually on the website, the alumni network you can find in the Lower Merion School District website. And then we had a little bit of discussion about the attendance line, which is a phone call some of us get if our student hasn't arrived in school. I think we decided that maybe it's not quite consistent again across the district in terms of how all the schools use the line. So we were going to explore that. And those were the highlights. The next meeting is February 18th at 7 p.m. and will also be a meeting of the Community Resource Network. So we'll send an agenda out in advance for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ackman. Did I miss anybody on reports? Okay. We will now have audience recognition on non-agenda items or agenda items. Again, if you could sign in with Mr. Orlando, there's a 3-minute time limit. No public comment. In accordance with Act 93 of 1998, the Sunshine Law, the Board of School Directors met in executive information sessions on the following date and discussed on dates and discussed personnel on January 11th, personnel again on January 25th. Upcoming meeting dates, January 28th, Legislative Committee at 8:30 a.m., February 1st, Curriculum, 8:30 a.m., February 5th, Policy at 8:30 a.m., February 8th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting, 8 p.m., February 11th, Facilities and Purchasing Committee, 8:30 a.m., and February 16th, regular business board meeting at 8 p.m. All of those meetings will be held in this room. Please, Dr. O'Leary.
All right, just wanted to mention that there were a number of meetings that we had talked about scheduling that would be dedicated to the budget, but I think they're not on the calendar yet. So they're not on this list, but they're up and coming, correct? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And finance will be in March sometime, correct, Mr. Bonaventura?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll have a number of meetings, particularly those that address the budget, and prior to us having to formally approve the budget in June. Anything else? All right, with that, we're adjourned.